Welcome to a very special episode 42 of Gary's Graveyard Ramblings. And today we are in that London, in the Brompton Cemetery, and a strange tale of social indiscretion in Victorian England, of murder, and of time travel. And here we are. Welcome to episode 42 of Gary's Graveyard Ramblings. And as you can see, we're in the south side of the village cemetery in my little village of Northiam in East Sussex today. And it's a beautiful morning. And oh, look, here's Margaret's bench, which I'm going to relax on for today's Graveyard Ramblings. Just turn it round to prove it's me. Hello. Now, what have I got to tell you today? Well, the last episode 41, I promised that I gave you a solemn oath that we would be doing this next one from a very special location. And unfortunately, the best laid plans of mice and men, the location that I chose to do it in became somewhat difficult to film in. And that location was the Brompton Cemetery in West London, around about the Earl's Court area, for those of you in the know. And it's one of the great London necropoli, he said. Well, it's early. I haven't had my coffee yet. And the trouble with it is that the entrance to it, which I'm probably showing you almost immediately, practically now, is at the Earl's Court end, and the main thoroughfare through the middle runs right the way down to Fulham. And it's used by pedestrians, dogs, walkers, bikes, lorries, doing the groundworks and just about everything in the kitchen sink. So it became really difficult to film in there. I was quite disappointed, actually. But sometime later, my mate Paul and I, who accompanied me on this esteemed visit on that day, we realised that we had stumbled upon the mausoleum of a fascinating character called Hannah Courtoy. Now, I'm going to tell her story. Now, it's not the first time I've told creepy didacious stories on here. As you know, I told the strange story of Uncle Jim on a Halloween episode earlier on in the series. And I also told the story of the footsteps in the night in Muswell Hill. And I told the story, the Motherlode, for me, personally, were my experiences in the Barbican. But that experience will be burned into my memory practically forever. And this story, however, of Hannah Courtoy beats the lot of them, hands down. It's got murder, it's got time travel, it's got teleportation, it's got intrigue, it's got corruption, it's got the lot. And I can't say that about my experiences, thankfully. So who was Hannah Courtoy, and what went on with this lady? Well, she was Victorian and born in the early part of the 19th century in London. She never married, had 3 daughters, and was the housekeeper to a certain John Courtoy. And John Courtoy was an industrialist. He was quite a wealthy person, and although they never married, and it's not clear to me, actually, whether or not the 3 daughters that Hannah had were by John, or whether they were as a result of some other form of between her, because she was a bit of a looker. Let's have a look at Hannah. This is Hannah. I'm showing you a picture of her now, a photograph. As you can see, she's certainly got the looks. It's not hard to see why she became so popular with the gentlemen. So she was John Courtoy's housekeeper, and it's rumoured his mistress. But in fairness, as you can see, because she was quite a looker, she also, Mooker. She also hung around with kings, politicians, rich people, anyone where there was a bit of money, she hung around. And she was also... She was quite an imaginative person, I imagine, because she was heavily into Egyptian iconography and hieroglyphics and all that sort of stuff, the mystic side. And when John passed away, she copped the lot. She managed to amass a huge fortune from his will, what he left her. And during the course of this, two of her other acquaintances, and it's not clear whether there was any between her and either of them, a man called Joseph Bonomi and a man called Samuel Warner. Now, this pair figured heavily in Hannah's life and ended up designing the mausoleum that she's buried in and which we discovered when we went to Brompton Cemetery. See how it's all coming? You've got to have a link. And so let's split these two up. Joseph Bonomi, famous Egyptologist, artist, sculptor, museum curator, and one of the first people to decipher the hieroglyphics in the Valley of the Kings. Not clear whether he knew Howard Carter or not. In fact, I think he probably died before Carter went to Egypt. But anyway. And he supposedly discovered the secret of time travel, teleportation, from the Egyptian hieroglyphs that he deciphered. What about the other bloke? Well, the other bloke was a bloke called Samuel Warner. Now, he was a much more shifty character in this story. He was an inventor. Now, the jury's out as to whether he was a genius or a fraud. I mean, some say that he invented the torpedo. But others were more convinced that he actually fraudulently tried to swindle the British Army out of huge amounts of money to develop the crackpot inventions that he came up with. Now, those two, Joseph and Samuel, between them, convinced Hannah to finance this secret project of theirs to design and build a mausoleum which held within it a time machine. Isn't that great? And it's a touch of brilliance too, because putting it in a cemetery meant that there will be relatively little disturbance. That they're not going to be disturbed by the people living around it, because they could get on and do whatever they wanted after forking out this huge amount of money. And it is one of the most expensive mausoleums in the entire cemetery there. Now, Hannah herself, she died in 1848. And yet the mausoleum wasn't completed until 5 years later in 1853, and that's where she and two of her daughters are buried. Now, after the mausoleum, this is where the story starts to get really... After the mausoleum was completed, Samuel Warner died in mysterious circumstances. Now, it's not clear entirely whether he was murdered or what happened to him. He's buried in an unmarked grave in the same cemetery. But Joseph Bonomi, who may or may not have been his murderer or accomplice in his disappearance, he is also buried in the cemetery, and he has, and I'm probably showing it to you now, a headstone with a rather modest inscription on it, but with a strange diagram of a hand. I beg your pardon, it's not a hand, it's Anubis, the Egyptian god, Anubis, god of death, Anubis, pointing towards the mausoleum. What's that all about? And so, on the mausoleum itself, which I'm showing you some video of now, there are strange markings over it. There are dials, or what could be clocks. There are circular patterns of holes within it, which suggest perhaps something needed to be inserted, or dials, or something like that. All very mysterious there, and very non-Victorian. They are not found on any other tombs, mausoleums or gravestones in these necropoli around London. So they're quite unique, these markings on there. So, and also, interestingly, there are no architect plans for this mausoleum. Most of them, as you would imagine, had to have plans drawn up for them. This one doesn't. The other interesting thing is that shortly after the mausoleum was completed, Hannah was interred, the key went missing. And it's been missing for over 100 years. No one really knows what's inside. Now, it's probably just a load of old bones and dust. It's probably all bollocks. But we don't know. Inside, it could be a TARDIS. Now, that's the real story of Hannah Courtoy, Joseph Bonomi, and Samuel Warner. Three strange characters, and our accidental finding in our busy video that we made at Brompton of what could be a Victorian Doctor Who. And on that note, I think I've yambled on farther enough. Do go and see it, actually, Brompton Cemetery. It's easy. You can go in there during the day, have a walk around, find the tomb yourself, have a look at it, have a poke around, and see if you can get teleported somewhere else like we were. And on that cheery note, I shall leave you in peace and say, salute.